What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Double Coverage, the premier NFL podcast of the Gin Sports Network. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on a Thursday, the 17th of November, 2022. I'm joined with Musa Basal. Musa, how we doing today, buddy? How we feeling?
Freezing. pretty
Say
cold out
that
here
again.
now.
It's in Michigan, and winter has arrived. Unfortunately, for some, fortunately, I'm kind of on the fence when it comes to the winter weather, and I feel good about the winter being here. I think it's timely, and I like to take pride in participating in some winter sports, some snowing, snowboarding, skiing, things of that nature. So I do enjoy it. Maybe even some sledding, some tobogganing. Do you participate in any winter sports, or are you a winter guy?
I don't mind the winter. It was just 60 degrees a few days ago, so still adapting to the cold. I'm not quite ready for it.
Yeah, I hear you there. Michigan weather at its finest. It could be 60, 75 one day, and next thing you know, there's 2 inches of snow on the ground and it's below freezing. So that's the state we've chosen to live in, maybe by choice or maybe just by circumstance. But yeah, that's kind of that's kind of what we signed up for. But it is what it is, man. Winter's here. We knew winter was coming. I say that as soon as the snow breaks. I say this as soon as we get to April, May, the snow is gone. It's melting. I mean, as soon as you say that, winter is still coming. Winter is on its way, even when it ends. So that is what it is. To each their own. Uh, and winter's here, so you better embrace it because it's here to stay for a few months. So that is what it is. We got a great slate for you guys tonight here on Double Coverage. We're looking forward to diving into everything that happened in the NFL this past week, and we're getting into the nitty gritty session. We're starting to put some playoff predictions, some playoff landscapes, scenarios together, and things are starting to come to fruition. There's still time for certain teams to build and to fix their wrongs, right their wrongs, and come back and maybe have a wild card bid. But we'll be talking about that here in the next couple weeks. We're not quite there yet. We got some breaking stories that we're going to talk about. Let's start with Jeff Saturday winning against the Raiders as of his first game as the head coach at the helm of the Indianapolis Colts. Everyone was doubting him. Musa, let me ask you this. What do you have to say about Jeff Saturday and his first win as a head coach in the National Football League?
I mean, he had to win that game. He was talking some shit on Twitter before the game, so it'd be pretty embarrassing to come out and lose that game. So I think it's a must-win game for him because I mean the Raiders are not a good team this year. They have not impressed anyone. So winning against them is a good step for him. Now we just need him to do it against a semi-decent team. I want him to continue to win and keep on going. And I would love to see him succeed as a player. He knows what the players want. He's a player at heart. So we see that a lot with some coaches doing well, like Mike Vrabel, Dan Campbell. They are players at heart, and it shows in their coaching. And I think teams can get around him. Players can get around him easily if he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, 100%. He knows the league, and everyone doubted him. We have to really highlight that. He was doubted by many analysts, players, fans, and everybody. He was doubted. Let's just look at it from a brass tacks standpoint. He was doubted, and nobody really had faith in him. He's like, oh, he's a player first. He was a player. Yes, he played, with Peyton Manning and did the whole thing. They doubted him as a coach, and that's very evident. And then we saw that. We saw that leading up to this game against the Raiders. When the call was made that Jeff Saturday was going to be at the helm for the Colts, these things were coming out, and he was starting off. They wanted him to fail. A lot of people, they wanted him to fail, and they wanted to see him not win. They wanted to see him falter as in the head coaching position with the headset on. And what did he do? Yes, he did. He talked his shit on Twitter. He did, but he backed it up with his abilities to shuffle some things around, specifically in the wide receiving core, to basically reconstruct that Indianapolis Colts offense into something that is more than willing and more than able to win a football game. And that's something we haven't really seen from the Colts, and that we've needed to see. If they want to win games, they can't be getting into overtime situations and ending games in ties with the Texans. I don't care if it's the first game of the year. You got to be better. You got to do better, and you got to execute on offense. Yes, they had some good wins up to this point, but it was kind of stale. It was stale as far as their success on offense and their ability to stop the ball on defense. So changes had to be made, and the higher ups had to make a call. And those calls are never easy to make, especially if you don't have a good guy, a guy that's a shoe-in. You might have to throw a wild card in there. And I think we can kind of say the same. And the Jeff Saturday story is very similar, I would say, to the Dan Campbell story. And you talk about player to coach, and maybe you had different avenues, and no one's story is identical. But you look at that mentality, being on the field, and then next thing you're on the sidelines. And he's played every role there is. He's been an analyst. He's been a player, and now he's a head coach on the sidelines with the headset on, calling shots. So this guy wears many hats, and if he can be successful as the Colts head coach going forward and finish out this season strong, basically with a high potential rate for a fresh rebuild. Maybe not entirely fresh, but you're gonna have some draft picks coming your way in 2023. So you got to focus on that. And I guess let me ask you this: is Jeff Saturday, and it might be too early to tell, is Jeff Saturday the guy to be the head coach for the Colts in the long term, or do you think he's just a fluke?
It's way too early. I mean, like we said, it was the Raiders. What they're right now, the Raiders they have the second draft pick overall right now. They're I think only won 2 games this year, so it's way too early, and it was a very close game, 25-20. So I'm guessing he's a short term option, and he's not looking to be the worst short term option right now. So we'll have to see. It's a waiting game.
It's a waiting game indeed. We'll have to see. Only time will tell. And I'm rooting for him. I'm rooting for Jeff Saturday. I'm a Jeff Saturday guy. I'm a fan. And I want to see the Colts do well, and especially seeing a player that was playing in their golden age to come out and to, basically put down his analyst, his commentator hat and say, you know what, I'm going to put the headset on. I give him a lot of props for that because there has to be some shifts. There had to be some changes that he had to make in a very short amount of time to drop everything and say, all right, I'm being called to the sidelines right now, and this is a good thing. And I'm going to command this team and do the best I can to lead this team in the right direction. So I give him props, I give him praise, and I wish him all the best. And I wish the vast majority of people, and I can't control everybody's minds, I don't have mind control abilities, but I wish more people would not be so quick to, get after this guy and to criticize him and say, this guy doesn't belong on the sidelines, this guy doesn't belong in a head coaching position. Give the guy a chance. Let him do what he has to do to succeed. And if he doesn't succeed, then I'm sure decisions will be made to put someone else in there. But at least give him the chance and help him start off on the right foot. Everybody that criticized him, I don't think I heard anybody say anything bad about Jeff Saturday as a human being. And that was kind of the disconnect. There was some form of irony going on there because they were criticizing his abilities to be a head coach, one, and two, that he should not even have been in that position to receive that job or the opportunity in the first place. But then they followed it with saying, Jeff Saturday is the nicest guy you'll ever meet. He's a great guy, really friendly, really down-to-earth guy. So there's some funny business going on there, but I'm wishing him all the best. So
Yeah, I think it's more or less that he's not the problem. It's just he doesn't have any experience. They think someone is more qualified. But I know maybe he should start off smaller, but there's only one way to gain experience, and there's only one way to find out is by actually coaching. So I know it's a giant jump, but give the guy some credit at the end of the day. There's no need to hate him just because you think someone else is more qualified than him.
well said. I completely agree. Let's move on. Let's talk about the Bills versus the Browns. The game has been moved to Ford Field in Detroit this Sunday due to inclement weather going on in the city of Buffalo. Now, we all know the lake effect stories. We've all heard of Lake Erie and the types and the amounts of snow that they can get in Buffalo, New York. We know that that's nothing that is, it's nothing that we're new to. We understand that. The city of Buffalo knows that. And they've played in plenty of snow games. They haven't canceled any games. But this is a very, it's a big amount of snow coming to, Buffalo. I guess Musa, you had a kind of a way to explain that how much snow. I guess incrementally, how much snow are they getting per hour?
I think they're getting upwards of 3 inches an hour, and they're expecting like what 12 feet by Sunday, or 6 or 12 feet by Sunday. So, I
Jeez.
mean, that's taller than most people. That's taller than NFL players in snow. They're
Yeah.
you're you're gonna have like Tom Brady and a few quarterbacks visible. Kyler Murray would be buried under that snow. Just gonna put that out there.
Kyler Murray will be buried under a few feet of snow, let alone
He'll be, yeah,
12.
he could hide under there and play some Modern Warfare 2. You know.
Exactly. All I know is he's probably almost hitting first prestige on there, and I think he's got his KD. His KD is on the way up in Warzone 2.0. I heard he's playing and getting some dubs already. So hats off to Kyler Murray, and all that. He can't play quarterback. Can't play quarterback. Might as well play COD, and give him credit there. So
He
there's a
got the
lot of
backup
memes and a
plan.
lot of ball busting going on with Kyler Murray and all that. And I think it's completely warranted. I think it's completely deserving. I have Kyler Murray on two of my fantasy teams, and I couldn't have made a bigger mistake in the drafting process. I had high hopes for
Oh.
Kyler Murray going into this year, and he's shown his promise in some games, but in the majority of games he hasn't came through for me. So it is what it is. I think he's better on the sidelines. He's one of those guys looks better with a headset on, both when he's playing COD and when he's on the sidelines in the football game. So that goes without saying. But the Bills and the Browns playing in Ford Field. This is a huge advantage, in my opinion, to the Bills. They are a passing team. They're going to utilize the pass. And obviously, due to inclement weather, since they don't have to deal with this anymore, playing inside, you're playing in Ford Field, probably got the heat on, a nice crisp 68 degrees. It's comfortable in Ford Field. I don't know if you ever had I know you've had the pleasure to be in Ford Field, but some of our listeners, some of our guys in different parts of the country might not have been, might not have had the luxury. But that's a completely different atmosphere to be playing inside compared to playing in 6 to 12 feet of snow, and that's just a ridiculous amount of snow to have in a week's time, or even in a whole winter. Really, it's just staggering. But and the Browns are more of a running team, so if you can stop the run and you can excel through the air, if you're the Bills, you're going to find some success and more than likely win that game. I guess what are your projections as far as looking at the Bills and the Browns objectively, looking at their offense, their defense? Where do you see this game going?
I see the Buffalo Bills 1-1 at Ford Field 1 week from now.
Oh man, do you want to go further with that, or you just want to leave it at that?
I'm gonna leave it at that.
Okay, all right. So if you guys don't know this, the Lions host the Bills on Thanksgiving, so that's going to be a hell of a game. And I mean, I'm kind of torn in that one, just because I've seen the Bills falter. Obviously, I'm a Bills guy. I'm a Bills Mafia guy, Josh Allen guy, Gabriel Davis guy. I can go on and on. But if I can see the Lions pull off a win on Thanksgiving, then I'm doing jumping jacks. I don't care who they're playing. So I mean, I just hope to see a game. I just want to see a game that's fun to watch, that's competitive, that is high impact. That's what I want to see. That's all I want to see. So if I see that, next week we're a week out from that game, then I'm gonna be doing jumping jacks. So I'm really excited for that one. The Dallas Cowboys will host, or that one might be, yeah, they have to host them. New York Giants. They haven't been playing too shabby. Dallas is coming off a loss against the Green Bay Packers. Big comeback loss. We've seen the grandfathers of the NFL really bounce back over the last week. And that's something that I'm excited to see. And hopefully they can make a playoff run, because for whatever reason, this could be the last time we see both of these quarterbacks. So we're going to have to look forward to that. And they just got to finish strong. Like I said before, the same with the Bills, and same with the Cowboys, same with the Packers, same with the Bucks. If they're losing games now, they want to lose those games right now. They want to be able to fix those wrongs and right those wrongs right now, because if they do it in week 14, 15, 16, that's too late. That's too late to have those types of errors, those types of issues. So, it is what it is. So I guess what are you looking for in a Lions Bills matchup? Let me just ask you that. I mean, coming off 2 wins, back-to-back wins under Dan Campbell, big NFC North wins, one against the Packers and one against the Bears. That was a huge win. I would say that's even bigger than the Packers win. What do you have to say about the current state of the Lions right now and their possible ability to beat the Bills on Thanksgiving?
So yeah, right now the Lions are very much in playoff contention after those back-to-back wins. I think they need to go. They have the next 4 games. They have the Giants, the Bills, the Jags, the Vikings. They need to win 2 of those games if we're talking about playoff hopes. And you see the Lions finally getting healthy. So Jamal Williams is back at practice. Josh Reynolds is back at practice. Taylor Decker is back at practice. So 3 huge players are coming back to this team to play. So the potential is very much there to beat the Buffalo Bills. And like you said, the Bills have been a little out of shape. They've been a little form. They lost to the Vikings recently, which was, I think, a shock to a lot of people. This Vikings team is a good team, but they've been only winning by 1 score. So I think that one was a big shock. So that will be interesting. So I want to see how the Lions do against the Giants before I make any real predictions against this Bills team. But the potential is very much there. So on the other Lions news, we have Jamison Williams set to return after Thanksgiving. I very much think that Jameson Williams, they're waiting to see if they're if they're going to make the playoffs, if they can make the playoffs, if there's a potential there, they activate Jameson Williams, they get him in, and they go for that playoff push. Now, if they're 4 weeks from now sitting at 1-3 for those 4 games, you might not see Jameson Williams play the full season out. He might get like 3 games under him. So I think that's what's going on with Jameson Williams, because they were saying there was some rumors that he wanted to be activated this week. Some chirping going on around that Jameson Williams wants to be activated. He wants to build a chemistry with the team.
Yeah, we're looking. I mean, that's only going to help the Lions if he comes back and he's healthy and he's able to play at the highest level. Then they're going to succeed. If he has to wait an extra week and test his strength either against the Bills or after they play the Bills, then I think that's the best case scenario. Obviously, you want to let all these athletes rest and you want them to get fully healed so they can come out and not give 75%, but 100%. And that's what you want to see in any athlete. We've seen that happen with Dak Prescott. They played Cooper Rush for, I think, an extra 2-3 weeks before they brought him back as quarterback for the Cowboys. So it's an integrity move. Yes, it's good to speculate and to say, hey, we want to bring this guy as soon as possible. We want to bring him back to the field as soon as possible. But if it's for the betterment of the team to leave him off for another week or two, you still have that potential to win games and even make the playoffs. I mean, talking with the playoffs and Lions, having that be in the same sentence with each other, that's amazing in and of itself. But these last 2 wins really brought some life back into the Detroit Lions locker room. And it was a long time coming. I know Dan Campbell's saying that, and he's probably having a case of beer after each of these wins because he deserves every sip of them. And I just got to take my hat off to Dan Campbell, having faith in this team and really believing in the team, never faltering, never blaming anybody else. And there's something to be said about Dan Campbell as a coach and as a person. So I
Yeah,
respect whatever decision they make, whether they bring Jameson Williams back against the Giants or even against the Bills or even after that. I respect their decision no matter what. I just hope they make the right decision so they can utilize him in every aspect.
yeah. I think Dan Campbell said after Thanksgiving, so I don't think he'll be back for the
Okay.
Bills. But crazy to think that the Lions are at 1.5 wins off the playoffs right now. And on other
That's
news for the
crazy.
Lions, if let's say we do lose these next few games, the playoffs aren't everything this year. I think Dan Campbell winning 2 games in a row really helped a lot of people see him as a decent coach and keeping him for another year. And if they don't win, they potentially have 2 top 12 draft picks this year, going 2 first rounds. That's You saw what Brad Holmes did this past year, and pretty decent draft. Aiden Hutchinson. We don't know how Jameson Williams is going to do yet, but I think he will be great. So even if they don't make the playoffs, even if they don't do very good for the rest of the year. I think they get a few more wins against the Jags and some bad teams, and 5-12, 5-13. No, yeah, 5-12, 6-11. That won't be. I think that would be a very good season for the Lions. They don't make the playoffs, but they have some good draft picks that are looking good for next year. Getting Jameson Williams back and then getting some talent in this draft would be huge.
If you're the Lions, take baby steps. If you're a Lions fan, you got to be, I mean, you had to have been patient. You had to be patient up until this point. And what's another year? You have to wait another year for a team to be great. We just talked about players that if they're injured, don't play them until they're fully healthy. It goes the same way for teams. You don't want to overextend yourself if you want to eventually be great. And sometimes it takes time. It takes a lot of waiting. And some people, some Lions fans, they've been waiting for decades. But whatever it is, whatever the case may be, as long as they're taking steps in the right direction, I think they have faith in Dan Campbell. They're getting behind him as a head coach with his culture and with everything that he's brought to this program so far, that they're going to trust him into, going into the depths and even have a playoff run, but they're not going to hang their hat on it if they don't get a playoff bid this year. So they've already started their season. We can talk about this till we're blue in the face, but this last win against the Bears was their first time since 1993 that they've come back from 14 points in the fourth quarter. We can look at the Lions and all of their games that they've been down at least that many points and made very close comebacks, and we can look at that and compare it to this season. Starting out with one win and several losses. You're fighting from behind already, and you're definitely fighting from behind now, but you're making strides in the right direction. You have several other teams that are in the same position as you that have their eyes dead set on making a playoff bid. So if you can be the Lions and you can be that team that can fight from behind and you can find success, whether it's right now or whether it's later, you're going to want to find some wins right now towards the meat and potatoes of the season. We're right there. We just made the turn in the season. So if you can make some wins, get some big wins under your belt and finish strong, get that playoff bid, even if you lose first round, that's going to be saying a lot about your team and what's going on in that locker room. There's got to be some good things happening in there.
Yeah, to speak on the Lions, first time since 1993, you can't tell me there's not an improvement there, especially with how many close games they've almost come back from. Even this year alone, almost came back against the Eagles. So many of these games they nearly come back from, and they weren't quite there. They didn't know how to quite win. You're seeing this team learn how to win, and it's exciting. My hair's sticking up now just talking about it and thinking about the future and what the potential of this team is. They're back to being that team that's, even though they might lose, teams are scared of them. They don't want to play him because they know there's a potential to lose to this team. They know how tough they're going to play. They know what Dan Campbell's building, and that's a scary team. And I think right now the Giants are scared. I think the Bills are probably scared as well coming into Detroit. Now, luckily for the Bills, they get a extra game here in Detroit to adapt to everything and get going. So I think that will work in favor of the Bills, but it's looking good for the Lions, and you can't tell me they're not improving. So that's all we ask for, just steady improvement. You want to see them improve. They want to see them do better, and they're getting there. They're learning how to win. They're getting the taste of that winning mentality, that taste of that win, and they're not going to let it go. I know coming as a player, we used to lose every single game. We got that first win, and we just didn't stop as a team, and it was a great feeling.
If you can find that success and you can build on it, compound it, that's going to be the sign of greatness for any team, especially the Lions. They need it more than anybody. If they can find a win, they taste blood in the water right now. They taste it. They know what it tastes like. They know what it feels like. They know what it means in the locker room when they're dancing, doing all the crazy dances. Dan Campbell's and they're doing the dances with them. They like that. They feel good about it, and they have the mentality, like you said, the winning mentality. They know what it feels like. You have to win to know how to win, and you got to find wins from the depths. You got to find them from basically nowhere. You got to grab them out of thin air and say, this is what it's like. Let's take this to the next level and see what we can really do. See what teams we can really beat. So if I can see that consistent success with the Lions, especially just this season, I'm just worried about this season. We got to worry about this season first. Get this done and out of the way before we worry about anything else. But if I can see some success going into the remainder of the season, if I can just start the Lions, start them off, give them the benefit of the doubt, put them at 2-0 right now. Put them at 2-0. Let's see what their record is at the end of the season. That's what I care about. If I can see that success, if they have a positive over 500 record, once everything's said and done, the fat lady's singing, then we're going to be able to quantify the success that they've been able to compound in the Detroit Lions locker room. So
And all I
that's
have
what I'm
to
looking
say
forward to.
is, it can't be worse than last year. They've tied the record of last year. So, and they still have so many games left against the Jags. So that's like, I feel like the Jags is just like a guarantee to win at this point for them. So put them at 4 wins. That's better than last year. So it's improvement, and that's all we asked for. That's all the fans were asking for, just an improvement.
We'll have to see it as it develops going forward. We're looking forward to it. I'm looking at the Lions. I'm looking at them under a microscope right now. So we'll have to see what they're able to do going forward. Got some big matchups ahead. And I'm ready for it, man. I'm looking forward to that Thanksgiving game against the Bills, my Bills. I'm looking forward to it. And I'm going to be saying, I mean, either way, I can't be really disappointed, but I will be more happy if the Lions win that game. Just especially, and they have the potential, especially with how shaky the Bills have been playing. Josh Allen's been throwing some interceptions, putting him almost out of the question for the MVP race in the NFL. Still not out of the question for a Super Bowl bid or a deep playoff run, but they're shaking their boots right now and they're in a vulnerable state. So we'll have to focus on those things when we consider where the Lions are headed. Let's move on. Let's talk about turf fields. Let's talk about CTE. Let's talk about different methods of therapy to aid CTE. Musa, I'll tee you off with this. So there's players around the league. We're not going to name names, but there's players around the league that are complaining about turf fields. And these turf fields, if you've ever been on one, they're very high quality. They're nothing like the AstroTurf fields that we had back in the 80s, the 90s, and even the early 2000s. Those are basically like playing on felt on a pool table. These turf fields are nothing like that, okay? They are built to simulate real grass. They have rubber pellets that are embedded within their grass,
I'm gonna
blades of
correct you right there.
grass. And
They've
yeah,
moved past rubber pellets. They're now using sand, coconut straws, and a few other materials in the field, so it's a lot
well, there you go.
softer. And I was lucky enough for my high school to put one of those fields in place, and
Wow.
I mean, I loved it because our practice field is a grass field, and it's not maintained, and that field sucks. It's like the Michigan roads. It has potholes in it.
Oh boy.
So having one of those fields, it was like life changing for us. So I was just gonna stop in there and put that. It's even better than
No, I'm
those
glad you
rubber
did.
pellets.
I'm glad you did.
So
So I guess
it's
let
even
me follow up with that question. Why are these players complaining about these turf fields, which are supposedly state of the art fields? They're facilities that are built for the enjoyment and for the benefit of the players. Why are these players seeing these fields and these grounds? Why are they seeing them as a detriment to their game?
say I mean high school player versus an NFL player. An NFL player is gonna be a lot faster, a lot stronger, and the equipment's gonna matter a lot more. There's nothing better than a great grass field. You can't replicate the softness of a well maintained, a great grass field. The problem with those fields are they're expensive to maintain. They cost a lot of money. So I think with like turfs fields, yeah, your cleat can get stuck in the turf from time to time, especially in certain areas on some of these fields that you see a lot happening where the players are getting injured in the same exact spot because there's an issue with that specific spot. And then I think with like water, like I think some of these fields like they can get like water trapped under them and they don't drain properly, which can be an issue. Or like the pellets in the turf, like whatever they use, like the actual filling of the turf getting spread out so it's uneven and it's not very even surfacing, which causes issues. So I think with the grass, you avoid all these problems, and it's a much better experience, especially of like an NFL tier grass field. It's unbeatable. And I mean, these owners have the money to do it, but they don't want to spend that money because it's extra money they don't think they want to spend. They don't have to spend, they feel like. But I think if they really do care about these players' safeties, you see Cooper Cup injured right now, and a lot of people getting injured on these fields.
Yeah, I think that the field. I guess after that explanation, I think a lot more light has been shed on what these fields are like and why maybe some players are against them and against the implementation of them being widespread throughout the NFL, whether it's indoor, outdoor, whatever. And like you brought up some good points. If the drainage isn't correct, if it isn't installed properly, then there's going to be water trapped under. There's going to be some unevenness, and then even more high potential for injuries. Like you see, Cooper Kupp just went out with a high ankle sprain, likely out for the season. They said he's out for McVay said he's out for at least 4 games, but I think it's going to be much
I
longer than
mean,
that,
yeah,
especially if surgery is needed. And that's
he
another just yet
he's
another
had
hit to my
surgery.
fantasy team.
I'm pretty sure he's already gone through the surgery. And with like this was where this Ram team's is at, they also had their offensive tackle go down with an injury. Stafford's down with a concussion, having to do hyperbaric oxygen treatment, like in a chamber that looks like a coffin. Like, so the Rams season is gone. So there's no point in risking Cooper's health at this point for him to come back, and especially without Stafford, especially without some of the linemen. And then Stafford losing another lineman is huge. He's taken so many hits this year that I'm not even surprised he has a concussion. So at this point, Stafford could use the rest of the season off. Cooper's probably had the rest of the season off. So the Rams season is pretty much gone at this point. There's no saving it.
Yeah, the Rams are in shambles. They before they lost Cup and before they incurred the injuries with Stafford, they were already not doing well. So I can't see them really doing much better now. There was speculation that Sean McVay will be seen in a commentator's uniform, that is a suit, and he might basically be on ESPN next year. I guess how do you feel about
People,
that? Do you think that McVay has a chance after this year, or no?
it's one season. I don't. He won the Super Bowl last year. You don't fire a coach that just won the Super Bowl. You see it with so many teams. They win the Super Bowl and they have their down year. They have like they tasted that victory. They got everything every football player dreams of, winning a Super Bowl. So I think it's expected for them to have a down year. I don't think anyone think it's this bad, but I don't think you're gonna go and fire your coach over it.
Yeah, I would
You've seen
agree.
his
I would
genius.
agree.
I mean, like you've seen his genius. Now, if the Rams fire him, there's going to be a team that will scoop him up so fast, like the Colts, like a coach, like a team that's in need of a coach. So
Yeah, he's gonna have some longevity. He's still a young guy. I think he has longevity as a head coach in the NFL, even if the Rams and the higher ups decide to do away with him, which I think would be a bad move in my opinion. But there has been very serious speculation that he's going to be seen with a suit on behind a desk next year. So I guess only time will tell with that one. And yeah, I think you gotta. Teams are going to coast once you win a Super Bowl. Teams are going to coast from there. Unless you go back to back, you're going to see some coasting happen
we've seen
because
Green Bay
yeah,
coast for 14 years.
exactly. They've been coasting for forever, and they had Mike McCarthy for a lot of those years. And what happened to him? He wound up getting fired and finding a spot, nice comfy spot in Jason Garrett's old seat down there in Dallas. So he was fine. He was fine. And you can say ever since McCarthy left that the mojo has been somewhat out of whack in Green Bay. But that's totally for another show. We're not going to get into that right now. What I do want to talk about, though, before we sign off, I want to talk about the Eagles and their first loss against the Washington Commanders. What happened to the Eagles? I know A.J. Brown got shut down. I know that because he didn't get me any points on my fantasy team. But I want to ask you this. Why did the Washington Commanders win against the Eagles in Philadelphia? What happened?
Before I go there, it seems like you're having a tough time in fantasy. If you want to bring that
Oh,
up,
I am. I am. I don't want to talk about it if you're asking about it.
okay. So, I mean, we talked about this when the Bills took that loss this year in the very beginning of the year. teams are going to take losses, even if they're teams that aren't inherently good. It's expected, especially players get complacent, players get overconfident, and it happens. It's completely normal. I want to think back to a few years ago when the Patriots won the Super Bowl with Tom Brady his last year there. The Lions beat that team. The Lions were not a good team. So I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah, I think just to further go on that point, they were on the clock. We talk about this a lot with college teams. Teams like Clemson, teams like Alabama, teams like Tennessee. They're on the clock and they're bound to lose games. Teams like USC, and it was going to happen against some team. They were going to find a game. They were going to find a week where they were just out of stride. Does that mean that they're a terrible team? Does that mean they're going back to square one? Absolutely not. This is a humbling opportunity for the Philadelphia Eagles. They knew it was going to happen. They knew they weren't going to beat the 72 Dolphins and going undefeated. But you gotta kind of look at your faults. It really requires you to get humble and to look at where are our shortcomings, where are the holes in our offense. Why did Taylor Heineke beat us? And I think it might be a little bit more insulting from an Eagles standpoint, just knowing that the Washington Commanders, out of all teams, beat you. But I don't think they should get hung up on that because it was bound to happen, just like you said with the Lions and the Pats. It was bound to happen, and some nights you just don't show up. And that is what it is. That only makes your team better by incurring a loss, I think, especially in this point of the season where you can afford to if you're the Eagles. And they're going to become better for it. I think you still got to be worried about the Eagles, and you got to be focused on their potential to make a deep playoff run going into the postseason. So by no means are they out. I just figured I'd ask you about that one because that was more or less a headliner in the NFL. So
I mean, what, the Patriots are the only team to go undefeated and win the Super Bowl? Every team takes losses doesn't mean anything in the scheme of things. It's one loss.
100%. All right, that brings us to the end of the show tonight. Musa, do you have any final words, final thoughts for the people out there listening in?
I know I just saw the playoff picture graphic, and you see the Lions in there. That's in the hunt, so that's all I'm going to end it on. It's a good feeling as a Lions fan, even though I'm wearing my Stafford jersey right now.
Hey, that's okay. We know you're a Lions fan at heart. And that's got to be a warm and fuzzy feeling for Lions fans. So I'm happy for them. And I want to reiterate this. I give the Lions a lot of hell. Okay, I talk a lot of shit about the Lions. Okay, but I always
Deserve it most of the time.
want them. Yeah, they deserve it. They deserve every bit of it. But at the same time, I want to see them do well. I don't want to see them fail. I don't want to say, hey, the Lions, I really hope they lose this week. I'm not like that. I'm not vengeful.
Hey, you're saying that you would like them to win against your Bills.
Exactly. Thank you. So you're seeing where my true colors lie. I mean, they're in my home state. I've had some fond memories of rooting for the Lions. Not many in the past, but I have a soft spot for the Detroit Lions. So I have to admit that. So just want to put that out there. Disclaimer, PSA, however you want to take it. I want to see the Lions do well, and I want to see them succeed. And I really like Dan Campbell. I love him. Ever since he had the kneecap biting speech, I was hooked. So I'll leave it at that. And we'll see what happens with the Lions going forward. They have a lot of potential. As you said, they're in the hunt. So the rest is in the hands of who decides who wins and who doesn't. So it's going to come down to who shows up, I think. So it is what it is.
Unless you believe the NFL is rigged and they're going to have the giant comeback story of the Lions winning the Super Bowl this year.
That could happen. All right, guys, good deal. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at Gin Sports Network and at Gin Promotions. Follow us on Twitter at Gin Pros. And be sure to check out the bottom of this podcast for our link tree and all of our socials. Check out our website for all of our content, our podcasts, articles, Instagram posts, you name it, ginsportsnetwork.com. And we'll look forward to seeing you on there. Get a hold of us. Hit us up on our socials. We'd love to hear from you. Suggestions, comments, criticisms, anything. We welcome it all. But until next time, guys, thank you so much for joining us on Double Coverage, the premier NFL podcast of the Gin Sports Network. I'm your host, John J. II with Musa. Have a